Let's face it, the NBA is a talent league. Sure, we reward hard work and team play and innovation, but in the end, look at the franchises that keep making the finals and how loaded with all-stars they are. And that's what makes this version of the Miami Heat so intriguing. It's not hyperbole to say there isn't an all-star on this team. There literally is not a single player on the roster who has ever made an all-star appearance ever. Instead, the Heat is full of scrappers and misfits who somehow managed to not just win their last 5 games straight, but edge their way into the number 4 spot in the Eastern Conference standings. Think about that. If the playoffs started today, the team that nearly tanked last year and missed the postseason on a tiebreaker would this year have home court. And how dangerous could Miami be in the playoffs? Well, just take last night's game against Toronto. Here's a hustle stat for you. The Heat rebounded the Raptors 64-37.
Wow.
The Heat also blocked 14 shots, and well, there were some folks in their feelings during this game. Here's Serge Ibaka and James Johnson getting into it in the third quarter.
Pick your fights wisely.
I would not get into it with James Johnson on anything. This is the man who in his spare time is an undefeated black belt MMA fighter with the nickname Bloodsport. Come on. Once you start trading punches with him, getting ejected is really your best case scenario, right?
Nice Photoshop.
The end of the game was also a thriller. DeMar DeRozan tipping in his own missed layup for what looked like the game winner. The crowd's happy until Wayne Ellington laid in the true game winner at the other end. Then DeRozan and Goran Dragic, they proceeded to get into it. You know, Zach Lowe has a great Heat piece on ESPN.com today that I would recommend to everyone. And in it, James Johnson describes how every Heat practice requires players to wear a mouthpiece, knee pads, and rib pads. And that the ethos among all these career scrappers is that, quote, no top draft pick should ever get a loose ball over you. Johnson says if a top pick and Rodney Magruder were getting for a loose ball, I'd bet my house on Rodney. And in a way, that's what the Heat overall have done. They have put a ton of money into this team of no all-stars and are betting that grit can carry them, even as they continue to take on injuries like, say, Dion Waiters and his ankle injuries. This whole strategy is not typically a recipe for success in the NBA. It is most certainly not going to get Miami back to a championship. But it sure is fun to watch. And if you don't believe in the Heat right now, well, all I can recommend is you not tell them about it because it'll probably make them kind of angry. T-Mac, do you think the Heat need to get another star and move on to the next stage? Or do you like what, I mean, they're 4 in the Eastern Conference. Do you feel good about this?
I feel good about them because they're well coached. I mean, when you look at a team that doesn't have any all-stars and any type of superstars, that shows you, and in there in the 4th in the Eastern Conference, that shows you how great of a coach Eric Spoelstra is. I mean, he's done this for years, you know, after Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade and LeBron James has left. I mean, these guys are right there. But in order for them to compete against teams like Boston Celtics and the Cavaliers, yes, to prepare them to that next level, they're going to need an all-star. But I like the scrappiness out of this team. But to advance in the playoffs, they're going to have to get somebody that can take the load off of these guys when it gets tough.
Eric Spoelstra does the finest job in the league of getting the most out of his talent from day one to the end of the season. And just look at the play that they ran to win the game last night. This play epitomized the Heat. They had all kinds of different things happening, guys running all over the place. Look how beautiful it is. 3 guys open, the Raptors are in total scramble mode, and then the play doesn't even work how Eric Spoelstra designed it. They get a scrappy play. That play right there defines the Heat. They are not a great team overall, but Rachel, they are great in clutch situations. They've won their last 3 games by a combined 6 points. There's a little smoke and mirrors going on there, but they're getting it done. Let
me ask you a question, because T-Mac says, and I agree with him, they need to add more of a star. They kind of have a guy who they thought could be a star, Dion Waiters. I mean, if you're on Waiters Island or off Waiters Island, depends on how he's shooting. Zach mentioned in his story, he said he's got the ankle issues. The team sort of has looked at him one way. Dion, according to Zach, has gotten a second opinion outside. There's some back and forth within the franchise of what the future should be. How much is that going to be an issue going forward?
So the good news about the Heat is everything you just said. The bad news is a couple of things. Number one, Dion Waiters' season is in jeopardy. We may not see him again this year. He is going to have surgery on that. It's just a matter of whether the surgery is that he can get back for this season or he's going to be out for the whole season.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, he's going to have surgery. We're going to have news on that probably today, later today. The other thing about the Heat is their best and well, maybe not their best, but their highest paid player, Hassan Whiteside, he hasn't been very successful with them. When Whiteside has played, the Heat haven't been at their best, and you didn't see Hassan Whiteside on the end of the game there because they take him off the court.
He's been in and out of the lineup, so there's just been that inconsistency with his play. I mean, when you're in and out of the lineup, you're dealing with injuries. It's tough to have some consistency in terms of your play. So hopefully he can, get healthy and. I mean, I feel this team can win a playoff series if they can.
Look at that offensive efficiency. That's so important.
Wow.
And you can see right there at the bottom, $75 million left. The other thing is Justice Winslow, the guy who they were sort of rebuilding after LeBron around. He's been injured and hasn't been effective. Dion Waiters, like I said, there's a good chance Dion Waiters will not play again for the Heat this season. So he's got a $50 million contract. So while the Heat have been doing amazing, they're playing a little bit over their head right now, and it makes you wonder over the long term, are they going to keep this up? That said, do I want to play him in a 7-game series? I do not.
So to answer the question, do the Heat need to add a star?
I think, Trace, their goal.
I like when Tracy's back. Yes.
He brings it right back to the bottom, right down there. Their goal when they signed all these guys was to eventually trade them for a star. They're going to kiss those guys and say, we love you, you're our scrappy guys. But their goal, they didn't spend $300 million, which they did for a non-all-star roster.
Right.
They hope that someday some player somewhere says, I demand a trade and send me to Miami, and so that they have these players to trade. That's
but they're paying all those guys a lot of money, and they are currently locked in. They're not paying a luxury tax this year, but they will probably have to pay it next year. They will almost definitely, if they stay the course, then pay it the year after that. That's going to be too expensive for a team that doesn't even, not just that they don't have a current all-star, they have no players who have ever in their entire careers, even once, made an all-star game.
And in the last 2.5 years, they've spent $300 million on those.
So there you go. So we'll see. But I remain impressed with what they have done, and I do not think it is a small thing. It is not easy in this league.